The Exe Estuary, it's a place of natural beauty, a place of contrast and a place of change. It's important for its wildlife and its habitats. Thousands of birds live here, yet thousands of people live, work and visit here on their holidays. People come to walk, to cycle, to jet ski, to sail, or just to enjoy the beautiful sandy beaches at Exmouth and at Dawlish Warren. And it's easy for us to think that the coastline has always looked like it does today, with the forces of nature tamed by seawalls and embankments. But of course that's not the case. The Exe Estuary has changed significantly over the past few hundred years. So as part of the Living with a Changing Coast project, I was interested to find out people's memories of how the coastline around the Exe has changed over the years, and also to see how the coastline is managed today from a flood defence point of view. And if the predictions for climate change and for sea level rise are correct, I also wanted to see what changes we might see around the Exe in the future.
The Exe Estuary is a single entity as far as the environment is concerned and as far as the coastal processes that are impacting it concerned.
I've been here at Topsham for 50 years plus, and I'm not aware that the estuary has changed fantastically. Obviously there have been changes, there's been more silt in the banks, but the channel itself is just as deep, just as good as it was.
There are pictures here where there are people in boats going up the high street. And several of the older villages here never put carpets down because every year they used to have floods and just brush it out and carry on. We're very grateful for the money that has been spent on the flood defence. And so our fear would be from threat of flooding from the sea.
It's the severity of the storms that potentially are more of a problem with the swell that's pushed up the river and things getting damaged that way. You know, our workshop will flood, we know it floods, our yard floods. You know, I came down last night, picked up all the tools, everything off the floor, and we had 6 to 8 inches of water in the workshop this morning. So, you know, just sweep it out the door, carry on. But it's not a house, there's no carpets and things to get ruined.
The only real changes that we've seen of late have been the extreme changes in weather, probably as a result of climate change. I think we agree that climate change is unarguable, but the whole question of sea level rise is rather more misunderstood.
Starcross as a village is 2/3 of potential flood area, and if it hadn't been for Isambard Brunel building the railway line along the river front, the village wouldn't exist really. On a long-term basis we are concerned on 2 or 3 fronts. The first one is if Dawlish Warren was broken through, and that would bring a lot additional water pressure along the front here.
I've seen quite a lot of changes myself in the time I've been here. I've been here for 6 years now, and I've seen the beach drop by about 2 metres in that time. We've lost 20 metres of dune front, so I would guess we're going to see the Warren under threat as current processes happen.
Over the last 100 years we've experienced 200 to 300 millimetres of sea level rise, and for the next 100 years we're predicting anything up to 700 millimetres of sea level rise. What we expect to happen is the foreshore in front of defences and railway embankments and high ground to basically get drowned out. Around the Exe Estuary, this is foreshore habitat that supports internationally important bird features.
Most of the estuary is actually designated as a special protection area. In addition to those designations, the Dawlish Warren area is also covered mainly as a special area for conservation for its duneland habitat. So it's very special from a biodiversity point of view, but in addition, from a social perspective, its proximity to major centres of population such as Exeter make it a very popular place for recreation of all sorts of different types.
I think probably there's going to be even more leisure and pleasure use of the river. If you look at photos of the 50s, there were hardly any moorings out there. Very few boats permanently sitting out there. That's got more and more crowded as time goes on. The leisure uses don't get in the way of the status of the river as a wildlife and nature reserve, and it's, I think, an example of how the two can live together.
The Exe Estuary is incredibly important for wildlife, and here in winter it's especially important for wintering birds. Now these are birds that have moved down from the far north from places like Siberia and northern Europe to escape the harsh conditions, coming down here to enjoy what the estuary has to offer, and they're here in nationally and internationally important numbers.
There is no need for any additional habitat. What there is a need for is a flood risk system that actually works, and if it's a toss of a coin between, do we have more wet boggy land which some people might prefer for birds and habitat, as opposed to green fertile land that is also great habitat for different types of birds, but that freely drains into the river and helps to protect people's properties and infrastructure, then we believe that's the correct debate to be having.
By law, we have to compensate for the losses of that foreshore. It's something called coastal squeeze. And as part of the Exe Estuary Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Strategy, we've identified sites around the estuary where this could be created elsewhere. These include the Ken Valley and the Lower Cliss Valley.
The first groups that need to be able to work together are the communities themselves, and there needs to be full agreement amongst all the communities that what is going to happen in various parts of the Exe Estuary is good for the whole of the estuary, and everybody is committed to what's going to happen.
Flooding and coastal erosion doesn't respect administrative boundaries. Funding is tight, so we come together to solve a common problem. It's important we tackle the problem head on now. Not to leave future generations with a problem that either unaffordable or them having to live with a higher risk.
We're at a very exciting time with the Exe Estuary strategy at the moment. A lot of work has been done by consultants and the Environment Agency in setting in place all the various options that they see are possible. But this is the moment that we are taking it to the communities, and for the communities to be able to comment as to whether they think everything has been covered, whether the sorts of solutions that are being put forward are the right sorts of solutions, and for them to have their input.
So if you'd like to find out more about the Living with a Changing Coast project, or about how the management of the Exe Estuary flood defences might change in the future, then please do get in touch with us. We would really love to hear your views.